Alright, what is up guys? VV back with another video. And in today's video guys, I can just see it. I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers with this one. But this channel is called the VV Theory after all. So we are going to talk about some theory crafting today. Today I'm going to talk about, we're going to look at a few card games, but we're mainly going to be looking at, we're going to be focused on the One Piece TCG and their color balance and design elements. And I'm going to kind of talk about the lack thereof, to be completely frank with everyone. So y'all buckle up. Let's try to be respectful. I want to hear everyone's comments. I want to share comments, of course. I want to hear y'all's comments, y'all's suggestions, what y'all think about it. Tell me, am I onto something? Am I, just tell me what you're feeling, right? So y'all hear me out. Let's get into this. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about the color wheel. Because like I said, this video is going to be talking about color balance and design theory. So this, like I said, I'm warning y'all up front, guys. This is a theory craft style video. Everything that is said in this video is probably not going to come true. This is not necessarily a beginner friendly video, though if you're a beginner, if you listen to this, you'll probably learn quite a few things or come across some interesting concepts and ideas inside the video. So this video is geared towards everyone. All right, so let's keep going. First up, I want to talk about a game called Magic the Gathering. Don't worry, we're not going to stay on this for very long. This is a game that's colors were designed with intent. Okay, and even where they are arranged on this color wheel, guys, even where this is arranged. For example, this color at the very top, the white color, it is allied with green and blue. This black color down here is allied with blue and red. Okay, like it is completely thought out. The entire idea is hashed out. Everything is where it's supposed to be for a specific reason. Now you come over here to the top right or to the bottom left, and we see the One Piece color wheel. I don't think you could find a more randomized design, in any card game. Maybe Digimon down here. I have Digimon at the very bottom right. But I don't think so. I think that there was very little design elements put in to the way that they balance One Piece as a trading card game. When you look at a game like Hearthstone, on the other hand, it is actually very similar to the balance design used for Magic the Gathering. You have your white classes down here in Paladin and Priest. You have your Chaos, or, the dark classes here. Black is the color in the game, Swamps. You have your Chaos here. You have your Forest or Woodland style characters here. You have your Magic users here in the blue. And you have your aggressive red users here with Rogue and Warrior. It just kind of lines up perfectly. And that contributes to a well-balanced game. One Piece can hopefully change its direction into what we're going to talk about in this video. And that is in my personal opinion. If you disagree, that's fine. All I ask is you be respectful in the comment section below. That's all I'm asking. And we're going to talk more about it. We are going to talk a lot in this video. Let me try to keep going and stay at a steady pace here because we have a lot of slides to get through. This is Magic the Gathering's color wheel set up, talking about all of the, the archetypes and what they stand for. So up here at the very top, you have the white here. Peace through order is the idea. With blue, you have perfection through knowledge. With the black, you have satisfaction through ruthlessness. With the red, you have freedom through action. And with the green, you have harmony through acceptance. This might sound like mumbo jumbo to some people, and that is completely fine. Just understand this, what I'm about to say. Magic the Gathering's color scheme was designed in a way that everything mattered. Like, the whole entire game is based around fitting each color within these principles, within these ideas. This is just kind of showing up. We're not going to talk much about this. These are just color combos. I have it in here. If you want to check it out, just pause the video and check it out. But the best example I can give for this is kind of like, okay, red and green here would kind of be like Straw Hat Crew maybe, or Whitebeard Pirates or something like that. You see what I'm saying? These are just different tribes within the game, but not even entirely. Don't quote me on that. That was clumsy. Let's keep going. Okay. So the current model in One Piece is this bottom left hexagon, where you have red up here in the top right, and then going clockwise you have green, blue, purple, black, yellow. I think even the layout alone for this game is not correct. Even the layout. And I'll explain why. Every single color should be based around a certain principle, or what I call an archetype. Aggro, mid-range, and control. Now, here is how that will look. Over on the right is how I suggest it go, where you just move the green over, then you move the yellow and black down one, and move the purple where the green was. And here's why I want it laid out in such a way. With these archetypes, you have aggro at the top right. Okay? Aggro is associated with red. Some people, I can already hear it, you're going to be like, why don't you have green as mid-range and yellow in between them? You can do that if you want to. It still doesn't change the principle of what I'm talking about. Aggro is here. Control is blue. I think most people would agree with that. And then yellow is, I think yellow is the most sturdy mid-range deck in the game. And then I see decks like Eustace Kid, Film Kid, at the time of me recording this. That's a pretty in between mid-range and aggro. So I think this is pretty accurate. But if you want to change them around, that's fine. Be my guest. If it helps you understand what I'm trying to say better, then by all means do that. Now notice what's in between them, though. What's in between the lines is what we have to read here. Red and blue, when combined, it makes purple, actually. That's funny, because it actually makes that in the color wheel as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in this situation here, in this specific example, think of like ramping into these bigger characters and controlling the game in that way. It's like this early form of ramp. There's where you get the aggro from, this early section of just ramping up, and then going into the late game where you have your control with blue. Like, if that makes sense. I'm sorry, that was clumsy too, but just bear with me. Purple should be this in-between of aggro and control, and it kind of ends up being that way. If you actually see how purple's going nowadays, it's kind of like it can do a lot early and it goes into the late game. Just to give an idea. With black, it's like in between control and mid-range. It's not really an aggro deck. In fact, it is the opposite of an aggro deck in my personal opinion. And that's good. That's fine. Green, I think, is in between mid-range and aggro, and I think the best mid-range example ever in the game's history so far would be Katakuri. That's just a personal feeling. Y'all tell me what y'all think in the comment section below if you disagree. Okay. And I think we do have to disassociate ourselves with some of the more traditional ideas of, oh, red is strength, green is agility, blue is intellect. Because here's the main reason why. And it's another reason why I have these colors split the way they are. Red, blue, and yellow are actually the primary colors. And it makes sense for those to be where they're supposed to be. And if I were designing this from the beginning, this is how it would line up. But I would have green down here between mid-range and control. And then right here would be orange, which is not a color that they typically would use. So you could turn that to black if you wanted. You know what I mean? That would kind of be the trade-off there. And I would also make yellow white, because I think black and white are good to spar. You'd be able to change a lot in that regard. And I have a hexagon at the very end of the slide where I kind of go into detail on that. All right, let's keep going. So first up here is the red, green, blue color model. Which, yeah, it is a thing, but it typically has to do with light. It typically has to do with, like, color for either computers, monitors, screens, video format, right? Whereas the red, yellow, blue is your actual primary colors. Red and yellow make orange, yellow and blue make green, and then blue and red make purple, right, or violet. And then we have black in the middle if you're to mix everything all together. Okay. Now, moving on here, this next row of slides, they're all going to look the same, but it's just going to be a color going across the screen to keep up with. We're going to be looking at 1 through 5 here. We're going to be talking about the color archetype, the primary uniqueness of that color, how that color complements others, and number 4 and 5 are kind of just like how does that color interact with other players, and how does that color generate value or interact with the game. Okay, so stay with me. 6 and 7, don't worry about it. I probably should have just erased those. We're not going to talk about it pretty much at all. So let's just go ahead and dive straight into this. Okay, let me go to this first slide. There we go. So you see on the left here, follow with me. So remember, the very first thing we're going to look at is the archetype, and that's going to stay true all the way across. And the next thing is how it's unique, okay, all the way across. The next thing is how it interacts with, how it benefits colors that it'll be paired with. Like say if you're running a red-yellow deck or a red-green deck, Well, red gives that plus power, right? And we're going to talk about each one of these. This next one here, calm down. I know people are like, wait, it doesn't do that. We're going to talk about ideals and what I think each color should have been. Okay, so feel free to disagree with me, but this is just how I think the game should have been, and strictly based not on what I want, what is balanced, what I feel is balanced in the game, or what would have been more balanced in the game. Okay, and then last but not least is how it generates value. So red is up first. This is the aggro color. Okay, what makes it unique? Typically speaking, it has most of the rush characters in the game, right? It's the fast, the aggressor style deck. What helps contribute to that and would contribute to any color that it was paired with is how it pluses power to its characters or leaders. Another thing that would be interesting for here is like, instead of rush would be like buffing your leader. That would be kind of cool because I know a lot of red leaders can get to like 6,000 power, which is really cool. But purple's starting to see that as well with Eustace Kid. Anyway, so it can plus power. Now the next thing is what is not in the game, but what I wish was in the game. Instead of Black Dressrosa characters having the ability to attack active characters, I wish that was Red's version of being able to KO. As in, remove Jet Pistol, remove Fire Fist, remove these KO based off of power, and remove the ability for Red to decrease power, because that is something that Purple could have had access to actually give it some type of identity in the game. Because even now, Purple's just now kind of starting to see an identity in OP06, or excuse me, OP05, which let's not get into too much yet. Let's stay on Red for now. I think Red's form of removal should have been very much soft removal in the form of attacking active characters. Because guess what happens if you attack an active character? Well, I can counter out of that. Okay? Now, yes, I know what some people are saying is like, oh, well, then it'd be broken because then they could just flood the board and just KO all your characters. Yes and no, because like I've said before, there's an easy answer to that. You just print better removal. Like I don't want to get too much into that, but instead what they did was they gave Red rush, power, character KO. They gave it the ability to subtract power, and they gave it card draw, and they gave it tempo, right? It's just they kind of gave it literally everything. So that's why Red is in the state it's in, because it's not based on a specific structure like this, well, really more like this, that determines this is what Red will have. In other words, it cannot have the ability to scry. Like, that would kind of be a better way to say it. It cannot have the ability to subtract power, or it would just simply be broken. That should be reserved for a purple deck, or a deck that splashes purple with red or whatever, with whatever the color is. Okay. So attacking active, whoops, let me get back to this. There we go. And then shifting Dawn. That's a nice way that it generates value. I think that's pretty well balanced. Okay, and that's the aggro color. Now you get over to aggro control, and that's where you start getting into this ramping ability, right? And that's where I think this is where the minusing power should have been. Okay, minusing power I think should have been a purple attribute, not everything given. Now, do you see what this does, by the way? This would give them a strong synergy for comboing colors. Like, oh, red can increase power, purple can decrease power, right? It just has this strong synergy. And then the other thing that purple does not have that I wish it did have is the ability to KO Dawn. Yes, I understand people are going to be like, yeah, well, it has that in Magellan. Yeah, that's like one card, guys. I'm talking about like that should be a bigger factor in purple, is hampering Dawn production for the opponent. Not KOing characters, KOing Dawn, right? So it's not quite the same. You see what I'm saying? And that would actually create a balance in and of itself. Because now, if you're running an all-purple deck, you have no way to KO characters. So the only way you can really, afford to do that is either subtracting the power of the character or out-ramping your opponent, getting board state in that way. And the last thing, the way that purple has the ability to, generate value is it actually sacrifices its own Dawn to get some type of advantage, which is a really cool mechanic, and I think they should stick to that and do more with that. Okay, moving over to blue. This is like your pure control element here, your pure control color. One thing that this color should have, that it doesn't, it has it in the wrong direction, like with Nami, is mill. Blue having the ability to mill your character, I think is very powerful. Number one, this combos beautifully with black, which we'll talk about in just a second here. But mill, it also would have a way of slowing down your opponent in the, well, not really slowing them down, but threatening them. Okay, I'm going to be able to mill you, if you don't slow down or if you don't do this in whatever way they could determine, right? I think mill should have been what made blue extremely unique. That should have been unique to blue. And they kind of did that, but in a backwards way. And then you get to blue's ability to interact with other colors, right? If you were to combo blue, it has scry. Scry, for those who don't know, that's where you look at the top cards. Okay, scrying, you're looking at your top card, and in this game, you look at like the top 4 or 5 cards, depending on your searcher. That should have been something very unique to blue. Now, I'm going to talk about searchers at the end of the video. I think those should exist. But I think scrying, and it kind of already is like this, blue has access to a lot of top 5 searchability, right? And so they got that part right. Next one is probably the most controversial take I have on here. Bouncing to hand. Yes, that's all that should exist. Not bouncing to or not bottom decking. I think bottom decking is absurd. I think it's absolutely broken. It is what it is. If you don't agree, that's fine. And last but not least, the way that blue generates value is through card draw. That is the way that it should generate card value. So moving on to black. The color black has just finally reached its identity in its trash recursion. It has the ability to trash cards. See, this is where the self-mill comes in. But here's the thing. They've already messed up with blue, giving that access to self-mill. And now you have black over here that has access to self-mill as well, so that it can interact with the trash. So what I'm really trying to say is you see how they still have this synergy, because they are allied colors. They are next to each other on the wheel that I made. They have this ability to synergize. But black's unique identity is in trash recursion. Okay, and then next up we have cost reduction. That is something that allows it to interact with other colors, perfectly, is by lowering the cost so that they can use their effects. Then character KO. So this is another one that I think should be much more exclusive to black, is KOing characters. Notice how for each one I have a different way to deal with characters. Like just going back to red here, how do they KO characters? Like they should be able to deal with characters, right? Well, I think they should have to attack active characters. And maybe only certain cards could do that, by the way. I'm not saying that every card in red should have access to KOing characters. I'm saying that they should have to print certain cards that attack active characters. Okay, what about with purple? Well, KOing Dawn to set your opponent back. What about with blue? Bouncing cards back to hand. Well, with black, I think it should be KOing characters. And we'll talk about yellow and green in a minute, but bouncing to life and resting characters should be their way of dealing with it. Okay, last but not least is discard for black. So how does black generate value? It's kind of the same way as purple does, where it's generating value by causing your opponent to lose value, sort of, right? Like in the case of purple, you sacrifice value to gain more value. Well, in black, it would be, you're not really gaining value, but you're making where your opponent loses value by discarding a card. Okay, moving on to yellow. This is like your mid-range archetype for the way that I have it laid out. And their unique ability should be trigger. Okay, and again, that's not to say that none of these cards, like, I'm not saying rush should only exist in red. I'm not saying that trigger should only exist in yellow. I'm just saying that they should be the primary inheritors of this effect. And they are, by the way. They are in this game. So triggers is a big factor in yellow, as it should be. It makes a lot of sense. Because what do? They have life interaction, right? That's how they are able to benefit other colors or themselves, is through life, gaining life and having life interactions. Okay, then we go down to how does yellow deal with opponents' characters. I think Katakuri and Pound are the best example of what yellow removal should look like. Thunderbolt, I feel like, is okay because it at least is removing a life. Like maybe that would be the trade-off. But I think ultimately yellow's form of removal should have to do with bouncing to life. I just think that should be obvious. Like that's their main thing. And then they can have effects based off of that. And then last but not least, I think that their main way of generating value should be through having banish as a keyword that's prevalent in yellow. Not so much. Now, I think banish should exist for at least one banish character should exist for each color. But I think it should be a major theme in yellow. And yeah. Okay, moving on. Last but not least, we have green. This is your mid-range aggro variant, and I think most people probably would actually agree with that if they think about it. Like, think of Film Kid. Think of how Dofi is, you know, where it has the film package. It just, like, spreads the board so quickly. It's this tempo idea. And when I have tempo here, I'm talking about how green can just fill out the board. Just straight up. Like, I'll just play Luffy, which will play Brook, which will play a 3-cost 5K. There you go. You know, that's that's some very strong tempo. And I think green should be the main character color that has that. I know that some, like, blue cards can do this, and now they're even making, like, some yellow cards that can do this. They're making black cards that can do this from the trash with Gecko Moria. The game's going kind of all over the place, right? I feel like some colors are almost losing their identity in some ways. But we'll have to see what happens there. Okay, so how does green how does green help other colors that it would combo with and itself if it's monocolor? What has the ability to make their characters active, unresting their characters and setting them as active? How does it deal with your opponent's characters? It rests them. If you rest a character, now you can KO it by running into it. Okay, and then last but not least, how does it generate value? I think that it should be able to return characters to its hand, and that is a feature. Look at Trafalgar Law and so on. 2 different Trafalgar Laws, right? Okay, now let's talk about leader distribution for a second. Don't worry, this is not pure chaos the way it looks. I have things rearranged on here where I think they should sit on this new color wheel idea that I've given, and based purely on a balanced perspective. Okay, imagine this guy. This is the first one I'm going to talk about. Is, you know, red green law. Like, we're talking red green law. That it's a, you know, has the bounce effect and all that. Imagine if red green law was just a green leader. I think all of the sudden this character or this leader is more balanced. Y'all tell me what y'all think about that. I think if red green law got changed to a mono green leader, and why do I think it should be changed to that? Because returning, resting, and the tempo stuff should be almost exclusive to green. It's what should make green unique. Again, this is in my personal opinion. And a lot of people have heard me say this, you know, whether it be on my Discord or whether it be in other, you know, previous videos. There are certain things that I think about when it comes to One Piece. When, like, I use the term that I use the expression that it is flawed at a core level. Like, it is flawed on a game design level. This is what I'm talking about. Like, look at Blue Black Rebecca. What if Blue Black Rebecca could actually swing and it was just a mono black deck? Just like how Gecko Moria is about to be just a Rebecca 2.0, right? At least that's how I feel. We'll see. That might not be true. We'll see how that plays out. What if Rob Lucci, you see down here with Rob Lucci, what if that was a black-red leader? What if Lucci was a black-red leader? Do y'all see how that would all of a sudden, let's go back to the wheel here, black-red. So you'd have the ability to interact with trash. You'd have the ability to KO characters and use discard with the ability to buff power and attack active characters. Like, you see how that would just all of a sudden, if they were using these kinds of principles, they could actually just make the game into something that is unique across the board, but I think would have more balance as well. Let's use a few more examples. You can pause this and talk about any of these if you want to. I think Enel should actually have been a black-yellow leader. That's just me personally. I think, like, black-yellow Linlin is fine as black-yellow. It makes sense. You're trashing a card to gain a life after all the investment you do. Enel's the same thing, but it's more a defensive version. I think Enel and black-yellow Linlin should have actually both been black-yellow. And Katakuri, I actually think, should have been red and yellow. I know a lot of people might think I'm crazy for that, but you're attaching 1 Dawn, you're getting plus 1,000 power, and you're looking at your opponent's life card. Like, I just feel like that's more of a red-yellow feature. Y'all tell me what y'all think. I think green-yellow Arlong is fine where it is, like, as a green-yellow. Okay, this one's probably super confrontational. Imagine if purple Kaido was purple-yellow instead. Because you have purple, which has this sacrificing Dawn effect, and then you have yellow, which has this life interaction, because then you could have it be like -5 Dawn to KO someone's life, to take a life away. It would just... And that would be more balanced, by the way, because he'd probably only have 4 life, right? They could balance it. Don't take everything I'm saying like 100%. It would just be more balanced. Think about Red Blue Ace. Like, Ace probably should have been more of this aggro control, combo. Same with Vivi, I think, was kind of perfect there. You're drawing a card. There's your control. You're getting aggro. It all makes sense. Purple Luffy, Purple Magellan, I think these were just dead on for what they needed to be. Here's one that's probably more confrontational. Red, purple, law, I think actually should have been blue and purple. Because again, you go back to this idea, like returning Dawn, sacrificing, there's the purple, right? But bottom decking, why would that be red? Why wouldn't that be blue where it has the bounce? Why wouldn't it be a blue-purple leader? Do you see what I'm saying? And I think the answer is very simple to all these questions I'm asking, if you agree with me. Some people might not agree with me. But if you agree with me, I think the answer is very simple. They didn't base their game around a strong core design. Like there's a design flaw at the core level. Now, yes, as the game goes on, I think they're going to find ways to work it out and work out the kinks. And I think it will ultimately come down to this. I think they will somehow revert into something similar. Maybe not every single thing the same, but it'll be very, very close to something along these lines. And we'll have to see. They might not. It might not ever get to that. What else? I just want to see if there's any other. I think, okay, so just to give some examples of like perfection in the color pairing, blue-black Sakazuki is just a perfect pairing of colors. You have the ability to scry, to cycle cards. There's like your blue and black combo and the -1, which is actually just more primarily black combo, or the black part of it. I think blue, yellow, queen's pretty much dead on. I don't think they could have done a better job with that, where you're using the top to scry to see what comes next, and then you're gaining life through the yellow. I think that's kind of perfect. Same thing with purple, green, Dofi. You have the Dawn shenanigans going on where you're untapping 2 Dawn. That's like a purple and green combo. Absolute perfection. Red Zoro and red Luffy, these were dead on. Red, green Luffy, dead on. I think that was perfect. A lot of these are, as you see, like blue Dofi, I think, is the like perfect leader for what blue should be. Like for the archetype of how blue should interact, where you're getting rewarded, you're getting momentum by playing off the top card of your deck using your built-in mechanics. Just outstanding. Oh, here we go. Blue Crocodile. Like starter blue Crocodile, I actually feel should have been blue purple, because you're returning Dawn to bounce. Again, it's similar to red purple law, not the same, not the exact same, but y'all see what I'm saying there. Okay, I think that's about it. Black purple Z, I think is fine. Blue green Zoro and Sanji coming out, I think is pretty much dead on. I also thought this would be interesting. Green Kid. What if that was black green, like how Isho is? What if they made Kid black and green instead of it being green the way it is? Because you're paying 3, trashing a card to stand your character. I just think that would have made a little more sense. Okay. That's about it. I think I went over all of them. All right, let's keep going. Oh, and one last thing for black. I think Black Gecko Moria is just the perfect archetype for what a black deck should be. Like that fully satisfies what the color encompasses. Okay, last thing. I think this is the last slide. Yeah, it is. Defaults and standards should still exist. I didn't even fully finish this slide. I'm sorry, guys. Searchers, of course, should still be within all the colors. Okay, starting life, I think, I've complained about this before. I think that starting life and leader power, I think, should have all been based around 5,000 power and 5 life. So, in other words, if a leader is multicolored, and, you know, a lot of people say, well, he should only have 5 life. Okay, excuse me, should only have 4 life. I think that's fine for any color that splashes yellow, but every other leader, I think, should just have 5 life, even if it's black green, even if it's red purple, but it should be balanced around having 5,000 power and 5 life. So in other words, they could make the effect weaker. That's just me personally. I know a lot of people don't agree with that. And then last but not least, the final color wheel over here, this is what I suggest. I wish they would have used something like this, because it would go off the same principle. So like, for example, green and black are on the opposite side of each other, because green represents growth, black represents death and decay, red represents chaos, white represents order, blue represents knowledge, purple's emotions, you know, so you got like, you know, logic versus emotions. I feel like this is kind of more what it should have been based around, and then these colors in between would be all the allies, like I was saying, and it could be red, aggro, green, mid-range, blue, control, and then each one in between would have worked out that way. But again, I tried to make it based around more what they have currently, like this, you know, where is it? This idea right here. Like, this is kind of the way they have it laid out, I feel like. All right, guys, that's about it. I know this was kind of a crazy all-over-the-place video. I'm sure it's going to ruffle some feathers. I just asked you to be respectful. This was just meant to be more of a fun theory crafting style video. What do you guys think? Do y'all think the colors are, like, fine as is? Do y'all think the game is, like, perfect as is? I think that it's moving in the right direction. So do understand that. I'm not saying that they completely blundered. I'm not saying they completely dropped the ball. I just feel like they kind of rushed the game out. Like, let me go back to, where is it? The color wheel. Yeah, here it is. Like, I feel like they just put these colors just where they lined up. Like, all right, first we'll make the red color, next green, then blue, then purple, then black, then yellow. Instead of actually really hashing out, like, okay, we want red to be aggro. We want blue to be control. We want black to be mid-range, or whatever it might be. Like, in this case, it looks like black would be mid-range, you know, if they did what I was saying. But I don't think they did that. Like, let me stress that more than ever, guys. I don't think they did this right here. I don't think this was part of their design concept. I think it should have been. And then the leaders could have determined which way the deck went in the final say-so. Like, you know what I mean? They could make leaders for each color that were more aggro-oriented or mid-range-oriented or control-oriented. I think that's how it should have been, while using these principles right here for each color. So, for example, imagine if I'm running a blue deck, like this one right here, and my leader's Doflamingo. Well, yeah, it's a control deck because of the color it is, but I actually can do something way more mid-range with that kind of effect, right? Whereas, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go too much more into it. I think you guys get what I'm saying. All right, guys. Hope y'all enjoyed that. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And hop on the Discord if you haven't hopped on there yet. We're always talking about One Piece, all kinds of crazy ideas. And, yeah, that's about it, guys. All right. Until next time. Peace.